Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of the 2025 season of BPM Talks. And today the talk will be in English because we have a very special guest joining us directly from Canada to share some of his experience in BPM and talk about his latest book, your new book, Business Architecture. Please welcome Mr. Roger Burlton, and we will also have with us Alexandre Mello, one of the GEP Ambassadors who made this meeting possible. Thank you for that. And of course, my friend and partner in BPM Talks, Fabio Hideki. And before we start, Alexandre, I'll hand it over to you to say hi to everyone. The word with you, please.
Hi, everyone.
Oh, nice. That's it.
I'm in touch with Roger for the last 30 years.
That's nice.
So I know him very well, and I know all his journey in BP field and BPM field, BP field in general, business process field, and now in business process, business architecture field. I think that is an honor for all of us to have him here, sharing his ideas and his knowledge. Welcome, Roger.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you, Alexandre. And Hideki, now it's your turn to greet our audience.
Oh, good morning, good afternoon, good night to everyone who is watching us, depending on how each one is watching. Great pleasure to be with Roger Burlton. I couldn't be out of this moment, no way. And I'm really happy that we are having this moment, because I think nowadays we are losing a little bit the origin of the things, and everybody is throwing everything out there. So it's a really great pleasure to have someone that having real knowledge to share with us, with everybody. Thank you.
Good, Hideki. And now, of course, Mr. Burlton, thank you for accepting our invitation to participate in this episode, BPM Talks, and for telling us a bit about the motivation that led you to write your new book, Business Architecture. Before we begin, could you please share a bit about you consider most relevant in your journey within the BPM universe, please?
Yeah, I think that for me, I've been involved in this since very, very early in the game because, first of all, I'm an industrial engineer by training, and that right away worked for me because I was very curious. I was curious about how things got done and couldn't it be done better. And I realized along the way that there are lots of people fixing small pieces of problems, but not fixing the overall problem, the end-to-end problem. And what I was noticing with that is quite often people would fix a problem in an area, but make it worse for somewhere else because one person's solution might be somebody else's problem. And I realized you had to sort of make sure that everything worked with one another. And it occurred to me very early that the way to start to ask those questions was not inside an organization, but outside the organization. Because organizations don't exist for their own purpose. They exist to serve someone and to serve someone as well as they possibly can. But unfortunately, they're broken up into departments and various sub-organizations. And so it occurred to me, we really have to make sure we connect all that work up. Everyone's trying to do their best, but quite a bit of the time is the work we're doing is not aligned very well with the results that our customers want. It's not aligned very well with making sure our employees are able to do their job the best they can. So I was very seduced very early on by the idea that business processes start with the outside world. They come into our world. We do lots of things. And if we're lucky, sooner or later, they go back to the outside world and we're successful. But quite often there's a lot of missed connections, and we do a lot of things that don't line up particularly well. So I was very curious with that since very, very early in my career. And then business processes started to raise its head of being an approach. And I jumped on it quite early in the game. And I was working with a telecommunications company at the time. And we started to do a lot of that work. I convinced my management that it was a good idea. And then I went into consulting and started to help other people get it all together and train them on how to do it properly and so on. So working cross-functionally was really what it was all about, because it occurred to me that we weren't doing this for ourselves. We should be doing it for the people we're serving. Whether you're in government, whether you're in whatever industry you can pick, we're there to serve somebody else. And that's the only way we should be judging whether our work is the right work. And if we don't understand it from the beginning to the end, then we can't make intelligent decisions about where should we invest and what should we change and so on. And it's been interesting because business processes have been very popular, and then they sort of went away. And then they became very popular again, and then they went away. And they keep sort of becoming popular, and then something else comes along that everybody else thinks they're going to solve the problem. Like ERP systems will solve all our problems. If we fix our year 2000 software, it'll fix all our problems. If we just look at IT, it'll fix our problems. But every single time, it's been disappointing. And people then realize they've got to figure out how does everything work together. And that's what a business process does. And I've been so passionate about that, that I just want to help people figure out what the logical thing to do is in order to make better results for the people that we're serving. And there's still lots and lots and lots of companies that can improve how it does the work and get better performance. There's so much good opportunity to improve performance that most companies are not doing as much as they could. And that's why I'm passionate about it. And that's also why I wrote Business Architecture book, because I realized that the processes are the things that determine what software do you need, what skills do you need, what products do you need, what marketing should you do. All the things we do are because we need to get everything connected for the right people who are going to receive our products and services. So that motivation is there, but we have to keep all that stuff connected. No, anytime we try to fix one of them without looking at the other aspects of it, we're never going to do the best we could do. We can do better.
And until today, the people think the IT will resolve most everything. About your new book, I remember at the beginning of the book, the chapter 1, I don't remember. You mentioned that when you wrote your book in 2001, the
first book, yeah,
your first book, companies were facing significant pressure regarding the challenges that changes were bringing. And you indicate that companies face the same challenges today. But what do you believe has changed since then, the 2001 for today?
I think more than anything else is the democratization of information. The fact that we can get easy access to information from almost anywhere. In 2001, the internet was there, but it was really just getting going. And the ability for organizations to provide the ability for customers to do self-service, look up your own information, place your own order. So, for example, today I'm going to order a new phone because it's the end of the year for me, and all the phones are a good price. So I can now go online, whereas in 2020 I would have to go into a phone store and wait in line and talk to someone. And whereas now I can just go to the website, I can order the phone, I can make sure I've got the right plan and the right amount of data available to me. I can do all of that, and my phone will be here in 2 days.
But you're talking about the way I can buy the stuff today.
Yeah.
That is the big change, the 2001 for today.
Yeah. The way we interact, I think, is really, I think so many of the products we have are pretty similar. The physical products haven't changed much. The services have changed because now most organizations push as much out as possible to make it self-service, which is great because I don't have to, if I want to do this at 10 o'clock at night, I can do it at 10 o'clock at night. I think this whole issue about I now have 24 hours whenever I want, I can do what I want, I can get what I'm looking for. Unfortunately, those same companies have not done the same when it comes to service. So if I have a problem in my phone buying process, and I want to get it fixed, first of all, I'm going to have to wait till the call center is open. I'm then going to have to call somebody, and hope they understand my problem. But I guarantee there's 5 or 6 systems they could look at with Roger Burlton information in it somewhere, and they're not synchronized, they're not up to date, and I'm probably going to end up going into a store and talking to someone anyway. So it's the service aspect that which I think we have not kept up because people have not seen that it goes from end to end. I don't want to start over if I call the call center. I've been online, I would go to the call center. If I go into the store, to me, that's one process, that's one transaction. But to them, it's 3 different ones. Probably sitting on 3 different databases with 3 different sets of rules, with different people trained in different ways. It's not synchronized. And I think this is our next step up. Organizations who want to be serious about doing this will put the service processes in place, not just the manufacturing and the distribution processes in place. So I think that's been one of the big changes. But also the other thing too is there's just the issue of risk. I mean, when you have things like a pandemic comes along, it throws everything out the window. But if you had good processes in the first place, the companies that had good processes in the first place got through that quickly. They were able to recover fast. The people who had individual people doing bits and pieces of the work and they never talked to each other, now that they weren't physically in one place, did not handle it well. So I think good processes allow you to be flexible, adaptable, and faster, cheaper, and faster. That's it.
Well, I want to go back one step because here we at BPM Talks, we always like to start by defining the main topic as a way to align everyone who will watch this episode. So I like to let's begin with what is business architecture? And should I consider business architecture as a discipline, a methodology, or a framework? Which will be correct?
I
Yes.
would like to complete
Be my guest.
to complete the question and ask, why do organizations need a business architecture? And why do they need now?
Let me add something too. As everyone is adding something, me and Nesta, we always talk about how PDCA and people needs are the same since every time. Huh? And as you said, the continuous improvement and they care about the customers. Basically, seems to me that the main problem is the same, and you are constructing the architecture basically to solve the same problems with these technological things, but the problem is the same, and the architecture is being constructed around this. Am I right or not necessarily?
I think it's even just in the process world, we always had process architecture as well. We typically, rather than just fixing a particular process, we knew where that process fit in with all the other processes. So we knew that if we accepted a customer, that we knew that there was another process that was going to follow that, and they're going to buy things and we're going to ship things. We also knew that we were going to get paid. We had to produce invoices. So we knew how those processes fit together if we had a good architecture there. The difficulty I think that we're facing is that process will describe the work that we do for the people we do it for and why we do it. But we have to invest in our abilities to do so. And that's where the IT piece always becomes so strong. I need to be able to build the technologies so I can do self-service, but I need to know the process of ordering a product and having it shipped to my home. So I need the process to help me figure out what the technology should do. And so much of the time, people will define the technology, or they'll buy something off the shelf, which does not support the way we want to do our work with our processes. But in addition to that, so much of the time now, what we're seeing is people want to develop one, say, technological capability, even though the human capability is just as important. They want to develop one technological capability to suit multiple purposes. So I was doing some work in Australia recently, and we looked at the whole idea for this phone company of somebody submits an order, and there's a process from the receipt of that order all the way through to the activation of the telecommunication service. So order to activate or fulfill order, whatever name you wanted to use for it. When we looked at it, we discovered there were 6 different variations of order to activate, because 6 different departments, each one of which had a different product. So there was like mobile phones, landline phones, internet, on all these other types of services. They all had a different order to activate. But 90% of what each one of them did was the same. And so we were saying, well, hang on, can we develop one IT service, one IT capability that will satisfy most of what everybody is looking for, rather than 7 different projects to develop 7 different variations with redundant data in each one of them? Now, maybe if I can develop one, and we see the same thing all the time now with security. You know, the whole idea of identity management. When you deal with a company, you have to identify yourself. How many different ways do I need to identify myself? Maybe I have 1, and I don't have 6 or 4 or 3 or 2. And each different department wants to do it their own way. I think this is why the business architecture becomes important. I can now connect my processes to the technologies I need, to the data that I could be sharing, to the human skills and competencies, to the business rules which are in play, because I need to be able to share that. And so the business architecture tells me, if I have this process, this is all the data I might use. If I have this piece of data, these technologies create or use that data. And can I now have data integrity because I only have the data defined once and it's shared everywhere? So, but it's the process though that holds that together. But the business architecture needs to know all these other things. So if I create it, I only create it once. And if I change it, I know if I change it here, it's going to affect the change over here. So it's that ability to say, what if I do something? The architecture allows me to be much more intelligent on designing my projects for change, and sometimes for opening the door to have a better process. Sometimes a better technology will give you a better process. But I need to know what processes, what data, what rules, what people, what skills I need to also think about. So now it becomes multi-dimensional change, because I can change it for one reason and make it worse for all the others if I don't know.
Nice. I like one when someone used the example to concept something. That's yeah, that's make easy comprehend this. And I believe it would be very helpful to also bring up the concept of enterprise architecture, because I'm sure some counterpoints will arise. So and the difference, business architecture and enterprise architecture?
This is a really good question because the terminology, one of the things we do in our industry is we introduce terminology that's confusing for everyone.
Yeah, I know.
And we use the same words to mean different things.
Mm-hmm.
So in some organizations, people say enterprise architecture. That includes all the technologies. It includes all the business requirements. It includes all the data. It includes the human skills, because that's the enterprise.
Mm-hmm.
But, and that's okay. So in that case, business architecture is an essential part of enterprise architecture.
Mm-hmm.
However, in a lot of organizations, enterprise architecture is only in the IT department.
Yeah.
And they miss the business side. And so if that's the case, I need to put business architecture in between the strategy and the technology architecture. I need to put my business architecture in because it's missing. So it just depends how the company has defined it. But I would say more often than not, it's used more by technology people, which is good, but they're missing the business context so much of the time. Their job is to introduce, they see their job is to introduce technology. But the technology is only one tool to help you make the organization better.
Mm-hmm.
So you are saying that enterprise architecture and business architecture has to coexist in the organizations.
Whatever you call it, yes.
Because they are different and they complete each other. Is that true?
Yes, that's right. But again, as I said, though, in some organizations, the people who really know their enterprise architecture have already included the business architecture in it. But a lot of them have not done that yet.
Okay.
Yeah, I understand it's have to exist the enterprise architect and business architect, because I also get the impression that many professionals see business architects as an input activity to create a set of capabilities that IT should build. Is it limited to that, or is it much more?
Well, I think what you stated is true.
Mm-hmm.
That definitely happens in a lot of places. However, if you truly wanted to talk about capability, which is a big word in business architecture,
Yeah.
if you want to talk about capability, it should be a business capability, not a technical capability.
Mm.
So the technical capability is part of it, because if I'm going to build that capability technically, I probably have to train my people, hire different people, maybe even reorganize my business. And I have to deal with as I said, the data and the rules and the policies and all those other types of things. Those things are not technical architecture. They're part of business architecture. So I need a business capability, which is all of those things working properly together. It's not just building the system. And so, whereas IT people love to have capabilities because it tells them what they need to build in order to support the processes. But in so many cases, they're missing big pieces. They're missing big chunks. It's not only the technology. Again, I think we have to, I'm not trying to be critical of IT departments.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big job and they spend a lot of money,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a lot of risk of getting it wrong. But there's also risk of implementing a technology which is not going to solve the business problem. So I think you have to look at the other aspects of it and truly say, my business capability has to include a number of things. It's got to include the organization, the human. It's got to include policies and rules. It might even change how you actually do your physical facilities. Like if you look at banking today, so much banking has gone completely online, and people are closing down branches. And so because I have a capability of people doing more for themselves, you don't need as many branches as you did before. Or you need to redesign your branches to be much more open and collaborative and friendly, as opposed to the old one where everybody stood behind a piece of glass and only basically put cash in your account. So what I'm saying is the physical facilities can change. The technology certainly will change. and the skills and competencies, the data, and even how you measure performance might change. So if you're going to build a new capability, you certainly have to understand what the process needs to be able to do. So there's this issue that the big argument in enterprise architecture is capability versus process. And it's really quite simple. The process is the work you do to get a result. The capability is what you must be able to do in that process. Because I can't just put a new system in place and say, I'm going to get better performance. I have to use it. And I have to use it in a process. And that process has a purpose. That process has a recipient at the end. And if I introduce a new technical capability and it doesn't improve the performance for the end customer, then why did I do it?
Capability exists for the process.
That's right. That's right. There'll be a lot of enterprise architects who don't like that, what I just said.
I have the background in IT, so I don't have, for me, it's okay.
I think everyone else have this.
Roger faced a big fight with the enterprise architecture guys.
I can imagine.
To let people know that process is not a sub capability or depend on capability. Process is another thing that has to be considered in all this puzzle, right, Roger?
You need both.
Yes.
If I don't know what
the word process for these AI guys, they consider a capability.
This is, I think that for people in enterprise architecture, if they put more business architecture into what they're doing, they will see that you need both. Because another reason you need both, even just from a technical point of view, the data you're using flows all the way through that process. It doesn't exist just for one capability. If I do identity management, I've got your name, your address, your identification, and so on. I'm going to use that same information later in the process, which might use a different technology, but it's the same data. So I have to make sure it flows, is connected, and I don't have three data. I don't go into a bank and have to give my name and address and my proof of who I am 3 times in order to do a mortgage. I should do it once. Because it should be the same data.
Yeah, imagine today the size of the bank with that massive data we have, to replicate this data. It's
right.
Unbelievable.
And I was wondering that maybe all this confusion is because we have tools, mainly IT tools, software tools, and we try to fit the real world into them instead of understand all these interactions and concepts. And maybe this is at least one of the cause of this confusion. We just try to put the things on the box instead of understand the context.
Absolutely. Now, I think the one big selling point for business architecture is it shows you how the pieces fit together. So that if you want to improve any one part, any one piece, you can see what it does to the other pieces before you jump in and start building things. And you find out when you do implementation that you missed a connection or you've got redundant data and people are taking decisions off of different versions of the data. The process is the glue that holds it together. You have to sort of walk through the process to see how it works under a lot of different conditions to make sure you haven't missed anything. But at least the architecture will say, if I'm going to change that technology, these are all the processes that use it. These are all the capabilities that might be in play. These are all the people, the roles in the organization. These are all the roles that need access to that data or need to be able to do that type of work. I can say, what if this? What if that? What if I change something else? What does it mean? And the question is really, what is the risk? What is the risk of missing something?
Yeah, it's a good question.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
And Roger, how to sell business architecture to an organization?
Mm.
Well, first of all, what I find is that you can try to be intellectual about it and give them all the good reasons, right? Or you can basically find a pain point, find something small that's painful, and say, let us apply some of this as a trial, a test, solve a problem, and then build it up, build it up, build it up. No executive is going to say, oh, I trust you, I'm going to change the way we do everything, because they see it as a risk. I think you have to.
It's really
it is a risk. Yeah, because you also get a lot of people inside who don't understand it, and it takes a while. And I think you just got to keep doing small things and build it up a bit at a time. Especially if you find a pain point, which is connecting, or you have multiple points across a whole chain of things which just isn't working well. You're getting customer complaints. People are returning lots of product because they were sold the wrong thing. Something along those lines. Or if I'm having too many calls into the help desk, right, that type of thing. Find a measurement problem and then just say, okay, let's investigate this and see whether or not we can pull this together. I think it's what I've discovered is that when you do that, it's the people in the business that realize the value and they start to push for it. You don't have to sell it. Yes, you have to support it and you have to keep educating. But I would prefer the business people to be the ones saying, we need this.
I agree.
Because we don't get paid for operations to work well. We get paid to help operations. But I want the operations people to be fighting for me. Find a champion, find somebody in there who will give you permission to try something. Sometimes you do find people who get the idea, especially, I guess, if you are going to talk to people about it, you have to talk about the idea that everything's connected.
Mm-hmm.
The subtitle of the book is called Collecting, Connecting, and Correcting the Dots. The dots being, it's an old, if you saw the children's books where there are a bunch of dots on the page and the children have to connect 1, 2, 3, 4, and it comes up with a picture. That's the connecting the dots. We have to connect the dots so it makes a proper big picture for people in the business. And the dots are all those things, but the process is what tells you what order to connect the dots.
I agree.
Well, about your book, of course, using the subtitle, Collecting, Connecting, Correcting the Dot. I saw you organized this book in 4 sections. One, it's kind of an introduction, and 3 sections, which one collecting, connecting, and correcting the dots. And
that's correct.
And the chapters is spread in these sections.
Yes.
So you organize that as a life cycle of a business architect?
Yeah, the problem is when you talk to a process person, you'll get a process answer.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's nice. So it's good for me.
It is it's not a very tight process, but it is generally a process that says, I really have to understand my customers, my suppliers, my regulatory agencies. I have to know all the things that are important to my outside world. I mean, I can satisfy my customers, but I'll break all the laws and be thrown in jail because I poisoned people or something. So I'm being a bit crazy, but you have to understand the external pressures, the external requirements. You also have to understand what kind of strategy is the company trying to reach for. We had a client a number of years ago that the strategy was to double the size of their business within 5 years. But the problem was the market was growing at 2% per year. They had to go 15% per year in order to make it. So like understanding that, it told us how aggressive we had to be with our processes, with our products, and how we went to market, because we had to be really, really aggressive. But I've got another client right now, and they're very steady, but they want to change, but all they want to do is make sure that they can keep going in the markets and that they're doing. So different strategies. So you need to understand those strategies so you can come up with some identification of what the success factors are. And so that front piece is all about determining what is the goal. In North America, we call it the North Star. You'll have to call it the Southern Cross.
Yes.
But because it's there all the time. It's something we're always aiming for. When we make decisions, we'll figure that out. That's the first part, right? The second part is about information. It's about all the structure. It's the information, it's the processes, it's the capabilities, it's the measurements. That's very structural. I can build a lot of models, quite detailed models around all that. And the third part is to say, if I have that strategy and I have these models of things, which things should I work on that will give me the fastest route towards my success? Where are my priorities? What does my program look like? What kind of project should I do? And then building those out and improving them after that. So that's what the three major phases are after the first one. So that's actually those 4 phases.
Mm-hmm.
Those 4 phases are built to say, what's important? What have I got to work with? Now let me build out priority, and then I'll operate and have continuous improvement and measurement on an ongoing basis. So it is a cycle, and that cycle comes back around itself, right? It's always moving, always.
It could be a life cycle, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about one information I read in the book. You mentioned as a target audience. That book should be of interest to a range of professionals. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned the business process architects, enterprise architects, and business analysts. But you don't mention business process analysts. And I thought, why is that? Is there a special reason?
Well, I actually think that a business analyst should really know how to do process analysis and process design.
Okay,
I think
it's included.
It's included in there.
Mm-hmm.
These days, I see the business analyst has to know process. They have to know data. They have to know AI. Mm-hmm. Right? So there's so many things they have to know. But I would expect them to carry out that role.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see a lot of process analysts who only do process. They do other things as well as process.
Mm-hmm. I'm talking to Alexandre about that, right, Alexandre? About
right.
this professional business process analyst and a business analyst, you know, and how they work together as one person in some way.
Yeah, but also I think business analysts do tend to have specialization. They tend to be focused in one area. So, for example, there's security analysts, right? Mm-hmm. There's the people who are very much on the data and analytics side. And you can also do the same thing on the process side. I expect them to understand a broad set of skills, but be deep in one. Mm-hmm. Okay. So they could do this for process. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I wrote this in chapter 3, still in section 1. You introduce the concept.
You know my book better than I do now.
I read it. First, because I love to read the book and about the process and business architecture. It's a good book.
Castro is ready to take a test, Roger.
That's me.
We'll certify you very soon.
I'm good.
Yeah. You auto test to him.
So in that chapter 3, you introduce the concept of value chain, within which value stream are found. So I'm thinking about that. What are the difference between the value chain present in this book and that one originally proposed by Michael Porter?
Actually, the approach I'm saying for value chain is very similar to Michael Porter's view of the world. because it very much it's very close to line of business, right? So for example, we have a client that grows forests. They make tissues like toilet paper and other types of tissues and diapers. They also make frozen French fries, and they have a trucking company.
Okay.
Now, some of that, the trucking company does serve all the other companies, so that's good. But the other ones, but they work as separate lines of business. And so each one of them, I would consider each one of those to be a value chain, because it's for a specific set of customers in a market, and those people have a particular need, and so on. But all of their managerial processes are shared. So strategy process, HR process, and all the enablement, all their IT is one IT to serve 4 companies. So it's an example where I would say it's one company with some things in common, but a lot of things are unique. So each of those unique areas I would consider to be a value chain.
Okay.
It's just a grouping of processes. Now you could say each one of them has a grouping of value streams. So for example, when someone is taking an order, and like, is an order for a truck shipment the same as an order for growing potatoes? And so it's a little bit different, but so each, like, placing an order and having it filled, to me, is a value stream. So, and the difference between the value chain and the value stream is the value stream is transactional. It's end to end, and it's triggered. Something happens to kick it off. Whereas the value chain is in play all the time. You're always doing all those types of things. But if I don't have somebody go click on submit order, then the value stream hasn't started. And it's not finished until that order has been shipped and paid for. So I can follow it all the way through in the value stream. And then under the value stream, I can find sub-processes and sub-processes and sub-sub-processes. So the value chain has within it a number of value streams. The value streams have within it a number of processes, and each process has within it a number of sub-processes. And if you put them all together, that's the process architecture.
And activity and tasks and
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you can keep going quite deep for sure.
And what are the key tips for connecting value chains with value streams, stages, and business process? What's the magic to connect all these things?
I think starting with the value chain is just a matter of asking, well, what's in it? And I figured that out by saying, well, who are my customers? Who are my suppliers? What transactions are going? And then, so I can find my value streams, because there's always like a start and an end, which is very clear. And the end is what the person who went click, what was their intention? They wanted to get that product shipped to them for this price, right? And when that's happened, then I've completed my value, my value stream. Now there is this concept called value stream stage, which to me is just a high level process. It's just a logical breakdown. For example, if somebody wants to place an order, that order will not be shipped if the person doesn't clear credit. In other words, they don't have credit, they can't afford to pay. They're going to submit the order, and we're going to say, no, you don't pass the rules, we're not going to ship to you. Or if they say yes, if all the rules say yes, say great, now I can go on to the next part, which is I can schedule manufacturing or production, and then I can make it, then I can put it in a truck, and then I can send it to you. I can send you an invoice. So the stage is the break point along the way. So, but it's nice to break it this way, because it's very logical that way. If I don't accept your order, I'm not going to ship your order.
That seems logical, but it's not that easy to perceive that, right? For someone.
but you have to have rules.
Yeah.
Rules, right?
Mm-hmm.
And to my Brazilian friends here, Dacio and Alexandre, I think in Brazil it's more difficult to understand it because we translate streaming and chain value, streaming and value chain with the same word, yes or
Yes.
no?
Yes.
Yes, it's the same. Né?
They are
Cadeia de valor to both.
They are considered equivalent.
Yeah, because one is fluxo de valor and cadeia de valor. It's you're right.
Yeah, I think so.
But here we always say cadeia de valor.
But
Roger, the example you showed make me think that a value streams is the same of an end-to-end process. Is that
Yeah.
right?
Yes. And as I say, in some places where we work, we don't use the word value chain. We just say line of business.
Mm-hmm.
It's just easier for people to understand what it is.
I agree.
yeah, I'm thinking about the people who's watching us right now, the audience. Think about the value chains in organization. And your example, one organization can have 2 or 3 value chains in the same organization. That is not too common to the profession. I mean, it's not common see that created 2, 3, 4 value chains in organization. You know.
You can
What
also
I find,
reasons
I
of
find more, sorry,
Sorry, Alexandre. Repeat, please.
in this case, when you have more than one business of line of business, sorry, you can have more than one architecture.
Yeah, I know. I'm thinking about the people when they want to create a value chains. You know? Normally, they think you one big one and put inside all the process of the organization. Try to linking all this process.
Yeah, but
you know,
this
it's
way,
not separate. It's logical separate with each
Yeah.
line of business.
a good example.
Abstract separation that we do to understand better the business.
Yeah, of course.
Otherwise, it could be a
That's
mess.
right. That's right.
It's a kind of abstraction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know.
It is. It's a way of simplifying things a little bit.
Yes.
So for example, large banks, and Brazil has some very large banks.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I guarantee they have a separation between consumer bank, which is everyday person every day, right?
Uh-huh.
Business bank, and wealth bank.
Mm-hmm.
They're considered to be 3 different value chains
Mm-hmm.
because they have a different purpose. They're measured in a different way. They have a different organizational structure completely,
And
usually.
customers.
And even the customers, right?
Yes,
Even
the customers are different.
Yeah.
Even though you could be as a person, you could be president of a company that's a business customer as well as a wealth customer, and like you can participate in more than one value chain.
Mm-hmm. See, of course.
But each one of them has a different purpose in the first place, different measures and things like that, and different operations.
Yes.
Yeah, it's better to
And
think
different
about the
objectives.
purpose, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, not the customer, but the purpose of the business. Yeah.
Because even it's the customer then is playing a role. I'm playing the role as a wealthy person or the role
Yeah.
of a manager.
Mm-hmm.
So and you're right. They have different purposes at that point in time.
Oh, that's nice.
But honestly, can I give you I don't want to make it more complicated. But in that last example, you might share capabilities across the value chains.
Mm-hmm.
An example is payments. Wealthy people have to make payments. Businesses have to make payments. Day-to-day people like myself, I have to make payments. And I shouldn't have 3 payment capabilities. I should have one that I share across value chains. So the thing is, as you get bigger as an organization, it gets a lot more complicated. But I shouldn't be spending 3 projects doing payments, one for each of those value chains. I should be sharing that.
Because of that is important, a well-constructed business architect,
Exactly.
to use it by the enterprise architect to create the capabilities to attend all of these needs, right?
That's right.
Okay, I can sell your book now.
Roger,
So-
Roger, I saw a lot of these architecture initiative as a one-shot initiative.
Uh,
What I'm trying to say, you create your architecture with some guys that interest on doing this, but it's not a tool itself. It's not
No, I
being
agree.
used all day long or
I
in a frequently way. So in a long run, people will forget this artifact and will throw it away. How to make business architecture being used in a frequent way in order to keep it on the long run?
Well, this is a fundamental question of maturity. When organizations are fairly low in maturity and they start to do some of this work, they usually do it because there's a big transformation happening.
Mhm.
So if somebody says, "Oh, we're doing a digital transformation," well, we need to figure out our architecture. Well, then the question is, what happens when you finish your digital transformation? How can I use this to sustain the benefits? How can I keep them going? And then how can I make sure that I'm ready for the next thing that happens and it doesn't take me 2 years to figure it out and now I'm 2 years behind?
Mhm.
So, but a lot of organizations, they'll only think about the projects they have to do or the transformations they have to do. And somebody said to me one time, which and it really stuck with me, it was like, if you want to lose weight, going on a diet is very short term
Mhm.
because as soon as you lose the weight, you go off your diet, you're going to get it back.
Mhm.
And the rule is always there. You have to change your lifestyle.
I agree.
And that we're talking about the organization has to change its lifestyle and do things that make sense that way. The other two other things I'll mention. One is you have to put in place the measurement system that goes with it. You have to be able to capture the measurement data and put it on a dashboard or a scorecard that the executives can see, so they keep looking at performance and seeing if it's going up or down. And then you have a reason to keep the architecture going. The third one is you are going to need proper tools to do this. You're going to need architecture tools. You're going to need modeling tools. Visio will not do it
Mhm.
because Visio, if I make a change in one Visio drawing, it doesn't know that this other one's also using that same thing. There's no knowledge connected that way.
Mhm.
Excel sheets won't do it. PowerPoint won't do it. You need something which actually knows that this process is connected to this data, is connected to this capability. If I touch any one of them, I should need to look at the other ones. But the kind of tools that basically will say, I know what the impact is of asking a question or making a change. You're going to need those tools. And
The tools
not
have,
a lot of organizations have them. There are some very good tools out there, though.
yeah, the tools has to have a repository
Yeah.
to keep all the views together. And I don't know how many tools has these features.
There's enough. There
Can you
are
name
tools
them?
out there.
Can
There's
you name
plenty of tools out. Some very good tools out there. The tooling is not the problem. It's the
I know.
commitment. It's the commitment
I agree.
to have people look after the tools and keep all those models up to date. That's the hard part.
I agree.
So when the project's over, the budgets get chopped off and there's no more money or people to keep the tools alive. And the knowledge goes away. This is a knowledge management problem. It's a cultural
And
problem.
I know. But
yeah, I would say that I think the culture is important because we like to work on projects, but we don't like too much to work on culture because it's more difficult.
Right.
But it was important.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we are coming to end of our talk today because normally our episode is about 1 hour.
Okay.
And Hideki and Alexandre, do you have some other questions?
I have
Opa, say it.
one question about your two books. Are there any plans to have this new book, the Business Architecture book, in Portuguese? Are there any initiative to have your previous book in Portuguese? You know that we found an editor that was interested in the first one, but he never published it. It's a shame because it will be a very good and important book to change our culture in Brazil.
Yeah, you're right.
And what are the plans to translate one or both of the books?
Well, I think the first one, which was written in 1990, sorry, in year 2000, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But that's more than 20 years ago. It's still valid, I think.
Yes.
And it did very, very well. But the new one has been about what, a year and a half now, I think, something like that.
Mhm.
The only plans for another translation and is into Japanese. So
Oh, that's nice.
I don't know how you are now.
That's making
know
it
what
easier
help.
for everyone.
That's not gonna help you. So, but in Portuguese, there are no plans at this point in time.
Okay.
But Alex, I thought that was going to be you.
Oh, that's nice. You saw, Alexandre.
Who knows? Who
It's
knows?
up to you.
Yeah. Oh, and what about a new edition of the last book, the old book?
Oh, the old book.
Yes.
I think if I were to do another pure process book, I would just write a new book. I would work it from there. I think I've learned a lot in 20 years, and so I think that, and also a lot of what I've learned is how to describe it. You learn how to talk about it, which I think is very, very important for people. There's no plans at this point in time, but if I get bored, which I'm not bored yet, so.
Me neither.
But there are some things. I mean, we should point to the Business Process Manifesto, which is available in Portuguese, which Alex, you were involved in the translation, right? It's just I think it's like 8 or 9 pages with just the principles of business process management, and it's still good. It's probably about 10, 11 years old now, but the principles are still good. You can advertise that on the site.
Okay, I'll put the address of this manifesto here in description of this video, and the people could see it. Right?
Yeah, and Alex was he's the one.
Okay.
Sorry, Alex.
Alex?
I said that please put the Portuguese version of the manifesto.
Okay, of course. If there's a Portuguese version, we will use it.
Yeah.
Okay, we're coming to the end of our talk today. It will really nice. And I'll hand it over to Alexandre first to conclude the participation. Alexandre, please say it.
Thank you for spending your time with us. It was a pleasure to have you here.
It's always a pleasure to talk to you guys.
Now, Hideki, your words. And of course, if you have some phrase of the day, share with us, please.
In Portuguese, I always bring some phrase. In English, it's a little bit more difficult.
Okay.
But we have an advertisement in Brazil that said that power is nothing without control. And I think it's a good one here because I think companies without architecture are power without control. Yeah. So I think maybe this phrase it was good here.
Yeah.
And Mr. Burton, if you share
the other thing I would like to say, I mean, I've spent many visits to Rio and Sao Paulo. I'd love to come back again. So
I know.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice. We can organize something, right, Hideki and Alexandre?
Yeah, he's flirting. He's flirting with us.
That's nice. So, and to conclude, I like to thank you again, Mr. Burton, for accepting our invitation. And of course, Alexandre, who made this meeting possible. And of course, my friend Hideki, in my partner. And I thank everyone who watched this, which was the first episode of the first season of BPM Talks 2025. And remember all the recommendations that Hideki always gave. Like, comment, and share with everyone. We'll see you again next Tuesday, same time and same channel. So, greetings to all. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Roger, your last word.
What, Alexandre?
Roger, your last words, Roger.
My last words is be patient, but be persistent. It's worth staying on the journey.
Oh,
You'll get there.
Oh, he
Okay.
used also a phrase. That's nice.
Thank you.
More Roger Burlton phrases too.
Thank you, Roger.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
And
Thank
bye,
you,
everyone.
Roger.
Bye-bye.